Welcome to the Afterspin, opinions from thought leaders in our state. I want to ask Leo Daughtry and Howard Lee. At the annual meeting of the State Bar Association, retiring Judge Donald Stevens criticized legislative attempts to reduce the judicial terms to 2 years, intimating that the move was one of retribution to judges who lawmakers feel are striking down their legislative initiatives. House Chair David Lewis, the House Rules Chair David Lewis, said some would argue that we do have some activist judges, and the thought would be if you're going to act like a legislator, perhaps you should run like one. Comment on that, Leo Daughtry.
Well, I think it was a shot over the bow. I don't think they're serious about running every 2 years. That would be, I believe, a mistake, and I think it would do great harm to the judiciary. But I do think the General Assembly is upset with the judiciary, and they wanted to let them know that this is how we feel about what you've been doing in certain cases that they have ruled against them.
Okay, but are they upset because they just rule against them, or are they upset because they're actually following the law in the Constitution?
Well, they're saying that they're not following the law. They're activists and they're making law.
Well, there are lots of laws I don't think judges follow, but that doesn't make it right. Howard Lee, what's your take on this?
I just think the legislators are being too oversensitive and certainly protective of themselves. And when it doesn't go their way, I've just noticed a pattern of this legislature to react and try to get rid of the problem that they're facing. I think it would be a terrible move to restrict judges to 2 years. I frankly don't like judges running for public office anyway, because they have to get out and take positions, and they get put in positions and raise money and so forth. And then I'm also concerned that we've gone too far again in moving judges toward partisanism, putting the D's and the R's behind their name, which I just don't think justice should be determined by partisanism and certainly not by philosophy. And judges ought to be respected to interpret the law, and if they're not doing that, then there are provisions to remove those judges from office.
But the reality is that, whether rightly or wrongly, the legislature the last few years doesn't have a real good track record insofar as these court cases. Now, this past week, they won one against Governor Cooper so far as being able to change the configuration of the State Ethics Commission and the Board of Elections are concerned. Is that going to ameliorate their desire for these 2-year terms, Leo?
I hope so. I think that, as Howard says, the judiciary has got to be independent. You want an independent judiciary willing to have the courage to make rulings that may not be popular all the time. And that's why it's important to have retention elections rather than have someone run and raise money and have to go out. And nothing could be worse than being an attorney and having a case, and the other side coming into court is a person had maybe raised $100,000 for that particular judge. That would give you some great angst.
Cause for cause,
Absolutely.
There's no question about it. So, is this just a one-on bill? I mean, is this something that they're doing because they think it's popular? I mean, I talked to a jurist this past week. He said it ain't ever going to happen.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen either, but at the same time, I think the people who push this kind of legislation are very serious. I really think they'd like to see it happen, because we've unfortunately been, I don't know if I call it blessed, but certainly saddled with some very emotional and philosophically engaged people coming in, and it kind of reminds me of a position I had with school board members who run with one issue, and that's all they think about when they get in office, is trying to get that issue
Here's
through.
a half-baked idea. Why don't we do away with the judicial branch and the administrative and executive branch and just have the legislative branch in government?
Well,
that seems to be where they're going.
That would mean that our forefathers weren't quite that smart, and I don't think that it would go that way.
I hope you realize that was tongue-in-cheek. Well, thank you for watching the Afterspin. We'll have more video all during the week on ncspin.com.